Landmark Preservation Commission at 6:01 p.m. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The meeting of the Baltimore County Landmarks Preservation Commission is now in session. Please note the meeting is being audio recorded. My name is John Holman, Chair of the Commission. I will be running tonight's meeting. We are your volunteer representatives appointed by our county councilperson or county executive and entrusted to monitor renovations and additions to our Baltimore County historic resources. We review and approve nominations to the Baltimore County preliminary landmarks list and comment on National Register nominations. Additionally, we are charged with evaluating submissions to the Baltimore County Historic Tax Credit Program that encourages the appropriate maintenance and renovation of designated historic properties. Would the commissioners please introduce themselves by name and county council district or representation? We can go in the order listed on the PowerPoint screen.
Lily Mundroff, Council District 1.
Chris Weston, Council District 2.
Wendy McIver, Council District 3.
John Holman. Alicia.
Lisa Jefferson, Council District 6.
Thank you. Ray,
Not here.
not with us. Ed is not with us.
Yeah.
Phoebe Evans Latosha, Executive Appointment.
Scott Holupka, Planning Board Rep.
Vince Johnson, executive appointment.
Marina's not here.
I didn't see Marina.
Chris Parts, executive appointment.
And did Jamie
Yes.
join yet? Not yet.
She's here, yeah.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, sorry, Jamie Ferguson, executive appointment.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Now, please stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. The Landmarks Preservation Commission operates under the authority, standards, and requirements of Title VII, Article 32 of the Baltimore County Code. We refer to the United States Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation as administered by the National Park Service. This is the accepted national standard for historic preservation projects. Our own Baltimore County Historic Preservation Design Guidelines directly reference and incorporate the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. We have important preservation issues to discuss and debate at each meeting. If you would like to make comments, please limit your comments to the specific application or proposal submission being reviewed. We ask for your assistance and understanding so that the discussions do not digress. As an additional comment, we can all agree that historic preservation is an important aspect of the quality of life and place that makes Baltimore County unique. As a commission, we seek to recommend significant buildings and places for landmark consideration to the County Council for their final vote. As commissioners, we serve on the commission due to our expertise, interest, and passion for historic buildings and places, and review submissions based solely on their merit. While we may disagree in discussion and voting, we continue to be a collegial body that respects each other personally and professionally. And with that all said, because I know we have some visitors tonight, we generally ask that comments be limited to under 3 minutes, and please name and tell us your name and relationship to the property. And also please remember to limit your comments to new information that's not already in the submission. Thank you so much.
Just a couple of staff reminders for offering comments when we're on an agenda item. To let the staff know that you would like to address the commission, you can either select the hand raise icon, which is next to your name, or you can send a chat and select host. It'll send it directly to me, or if you have any questions and you don't want to speak, you can write it in there. Also, for LPC review, all the commissioners receive all the meeting materials 1 week prior to the meeting so that they can review them prior. The information that's in this presentation is just an overview and summary of the cases being reviewed, and it's more like a visual aid to help keep the meeting moving and organized.
Thank you. Thank you. Jessica or Caitlin, any changes to inform the commissioners? Any changes to the preliminary agenda?
No changes.
Okay, thank you. And then minutes, everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. Is there a motion to approve them or to amend them?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second? Anybody?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Scott. All in favor? We can do by voice vote.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you. We have identified as consent agendas numbers 6, 8, 10, and 13. And I'm going to ask the staff to go ahead and read the staff recommendation on those.
Hi, good evening. Agenda item number 6 for the Monologue LLC property located at 209 Central Avenue in Glendon. Says a contributing property in the Glendon County Historic District, MIP number 2210, and the applicant has proposed a replacement of 2 doors located on the first and second stories of a rear addition that is non-historic to the building. And staff recommends to issue a certificate of appropriateness citing Baltimore County Historic Guidelines, windows and doors, pages 1 through 8, County Code 327-304. Second is agenda item number 8, Russell property located at 333 West Seminary Avenue, County Council District number 3. This is a contributing property in the Lutherville County Historic District, and the applicant proposes to replace 6 vinyl windows on a 2-story bay window located in a non-historic rear addition with 4/4 wood windows to match the rest of the home. Staff recommends to vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness as proposed, citing Baltimore County Historic Guidelines, windows and doors, pages 2 through 6, County Code section 327-405. Next, we have agenda item number 10, the Beverly property located on 16202 Corbett Village Lane in Moncton, County Council District number 3. This is a contributing structure in the Corbett County Historic District, and the homeowners wish to install a playset. Staff recommends to vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness as proposed, citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, fences and landscapes, pages 2 through 5, County Code section 327-405. And lastly, we have agenda item number 13, the Hereford High School barn. The Board of Education of Baltimore County property located at 17301 York Road in Parkton, County Council District number 3. This is a final landmark, number 132, the Hereford High School barn. And the owners would like to replace the metal roof, siding, make trim repairs, lighting installation, structural support installation, and door repairs. And staff recommends to issue a certificate of appropriateness as proposed, citing Baltimore County Code section 327-403, historic guidelines, facade materials.
Just a note on this one, it's actually just the installation of the support posts under the cantilevered upper barn level. All the other work was previously approved by the commission. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
Thank you for that clarification, Caitlin. And thank you, Jessica. So we can vote to approve all of these consent items at once, or if the commission would prefer that any item be removed from the consent agenda, we can look at it in more detail as we go through the meeting. So I would ask for a motion to approve them all or to slice one or two off if they choose to.
I'd like to make a motion to approve them all. This is Chris Weston.
Thank you. And a second?
I'd like to actually pull one out. Action item number 8.
Number 8.
Mhm.
Okay, will you accept an amendment to your motion, Chris, that we approve all except item 8?
I accept the amendment.
And is there a second for that motion?
Second.
And can we do a roll call vote, please, Jessica?
Please have Vince,
I'm sorry, I'm on my wife's computer and I get mixed up. Yes.
Hugh, Scott,
Yes.
Phoebe,
Yes.
Chris Parts,
Yes.
Chris Weston,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Salisa,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and John.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Lily. And then Jessica, I will turn it over to you for the beginning with number 4, Oak Grove and setting, okay?
Right.
That's me. I can do that. That
Okay.
one. All right. So tonight for our first item up for discussion and vote is Oak Grove and setting. This is a landmark nomination. Hold on, let me just switch. All right. So this is a home nomination. So again, it was submitted by the property owner under the following criteria for Baltimore County landmarks. Criteria 1, which is association with an important person, group event, or series of events of historical importance, and criteria 2, the distinctive example of a particular architectural style of period. So the nomination was submitted for criteria 1 for the association with Peter Hawes, a local landowner, and his contributions to the development of Catonsville and its association with the developments of the Project Turnpike and the Village of Catonsville. And then for criteria 2, it's an example of a Second Empire and Queen Anne style of architecture. And just a note for everyone attending, so when we receive landmark nominations, staff conducts additional research outside of what is submitted in the nomination. And we do this in order to determine the significance and historical integrity of the nominated property and review it against the justifications presented in the submitted nomination form. And then when we evaluate the property, we apply, and when we apply the landmark criteria, the staff and commission utilize the Secretary of Interior's standards, or the Secretary of Interior's publication, How to Apply the National Register Criteria for Evaluation, which is outlined in the LPC's historic guidelines and regulations, which are available on LPC's website. And the property name is Oak Grove, and it's going to give you a little historic context and history of the property, along with my evaluation using the 2 criteria. All right. So Oak Grove is a historic property located on the north side of Frederick Road, about a mile west of downtown Catonsville. The location of the property along Frederick Road has a historical association with the development of the National Road with Catonsville. Currently, the 0.8 of an acre lot is improved with a 3-story house that exhibits Queen Anne and Second Empire characteristics. The original property was improved sometime between 1834 and 1840 with a 2-story stone structure with a hipped roof by Peter Hawes, a local landowner and businessman who also owned a neighboring tavern. It was constructed during Catonsville's early development as a stopping point along the newly formed Frederick Turnpike and the early beginnings of Catonsville's era, or early beginnings of Catonsville becoming a summer home community. In 1886, under the ownership of Samuel D. Helfrich, the house was extensively renovated to reflect the modern Victorian architectural styles that were popular during the late 19th century and reflected on numerous homes constructed throughout Catonsville during the same time. Helfrich's modern Victorian upgrades to the house coincided with the high point of Catonsville's summer home era from the 1880s to about 1900. These renovations resulted in its visual appearance of the house we see today. Into the 20th century, the property and surrounding area followed the same development patterns as other summer communities in the state and country that were where improved transportation and social changes caused larger estates to be subdivided, transitioning to year-round communities. The property today continues to be a residential property. So the period, after my research, the period of significance for the property dates to the late 1880s after the renovations, which resulted in the structure's current appearance, to about the 1940s when the current property size was established. Even though the property's period of significance dates to the late 19th century, during the height of Catonsville's summer home era, it is important to note that the general historic context of the area and the history of the property prior to the 1880s is also significant to the property's history and surrounding area. The village of Catonsville was founded in the early 19th century along the Frederick Turnpike in 1805 in order to facilitate commerce with the rapidly growing western regions of Maryland. The state legislature authorized the development of the Baltimore and Fredericktown Turnpike Road. It was to run from downtown Baltimore to Frederick via Ellicott City. In 1806, Congress authorized the establishment of a road running from Cumberland, Maryland, to the Ohio River, which eventually would join the Frederick Turnpike, thus connecting the port of Baltimore to the interior of the United States and facilitated the country's westward expansion. Situated just 6 to 7 miles from Baltimore, the area that would become Catonsville was a natural location for the establishment of a village and a stopping point on the Frederick Turnpike. In 1810, the aggregate land holdings of the Baltimore Company, which were also known as the Baltimore Iron Works, were divided amongst its members and heirs. The Baltimore Company began in the 1730s, and the company's land holdings increased dramatically, making it the largest landowner in southern Baltimore County. In 1764, with 30,000 acres, and they operated several iron furnaces. The area that is known as Catonsville was once part of those land holdings of the Baltimore Company. Charles Carroll of Carrollton, son of one of the original partners of the Baltimore Company, received land on the north side of the Frederick Turnpike. In 1810, Carroll gifted land to his son-in-law, Richard Canton, which is Catonsville's namesake, and was commissioned to develop the land and proceeded to divide the property into 20 lots conveyed as leasehold estates. In addition, he conveyed smaller properties for businesses and local tradespeople, which would eventually become the village of Catonsville. Property that Oak Grove presently sits on was originally part of the land tracts owned by the Baltimore Company. In 1811, 46 acres was conveyed to Jonathan Monroe from the Baltimore Company. Monroe reportedly used the land to build a wagon stand or tavern, which still stands today on the neighboring property at 1810 Frederick Road, which is already a final landmark, number 63. At the time of Monroe's conveyance of the property, the newly formed Baltimore and Frederick Turnpike saw an increase of travelers and which attracted settlers to the Catonsville area and was pivotal in its early development. In 1829, Monroe defaulted on his mortgage and the property was sold at auction. It was advertised in the Baltimore American in September of 1829. The advertisement mentions a valuable stone tavern located between the 7th and 8th mile marker on the Frederick Turnpike. Thomas Tennant was the highest bidder, paying $3,200 for the 46-acre lot. And then in 1834, Tennant conveyed the property to Peter Hawes of Baltimore City, together with the tavern house thereon, at the present in possession of Abraham Dogbrith as a tenant holding lease by a lease from year to year. So Peter Hawes was a local landowner and businessman who began buying property in 1850 near the eastern end of the Frederick Turnpike. He continued this practice by buying many parcels on both sides of the turnpike westward into Catonsville area, and even well past North Rolling Road. He eventually built a dam and sawmill, which provided timbers for the construction of many Catonsville buildings and homes during this time. By the 1830s and 1840s, Catonsville was already a popular stopping point along the turnpike. As a result, taverns and other travel-related businesses started to flourish in the area. In addition, stores and shops sprang up that catered to the local farmers and residents in the surrounding areas. After 1840, with the establishment of the railway, the road traffic decreased some, and as a result, Monroe's Tavern ceased operation around them. However, the area also attracted a group of wealthy Baltimoreans, and by the 1850s and onwards, their large summer estates surrounded the village. By 1850s, Catonsville had become a well-established village consisting of a small nucleus of stores and homes and a widely flung series of country homes. The property shows up for the first time in the 1850 Sydney Atlas. Although it has a different spelling of Hawes as Haws, the map also shows the location of his sawmill on the south side of Frederick Road. The exact date of construction of Oak Grove isn't certain. However, it was assumed that the house was built sometime after 1834 as his family residence. An advertisement in May of 1840, Hawes is searching for a teacher and asks interested parties to apply to Peter Hawes on the Frederick Turnpike, 7.5 miles from Baltimore. So this helps us conclude that the house was most likely constructed before 1840 and after 1834 when he acquired the property. Later records from a family lawsuit indicate that the house was constructed of stone, had 2 stories with a hip roof. In addition, that had a frame dining kitchen ring that was added after the house was constructed. The 1857 Taylor Atlas labels the dwelling as P. Hawes and Oak Grove for the first time. You can see a sawmill across Frederick Road labeled as Spring Mills, which is owned by his son Benjamin. Peter Hawes died in 1858, and his wife is listed as a property owner on the 1876 Hopkins Atlas. The 1876 Atlas also shows us the house's footprint and the location of the tavern 1810, which is presently 1810 Frederick Road, and a barn and an additional structure. Census records listed Peter Hawes as a farmer in 1850, and there are several newspaper notices that refer to stolen horses that reference Peter Hawes' farm on the Frederick Turnpike. Mrs. Hawes died in 1876. However, Oak Grove remained largely intact until an interfamily lawsuit of 1881. The records of the lawsuit provide a lot of information about the property. Some testimony filed in the suit suggests that the present 1810 structure had then become a tenant house overshadowed by Oak Grove. We also learned that it was a two-story stone dwelling, had a frame or dining and kitchen wing, and a barn. I also want to point out that a lot was going on in the Catonsville area during this time as well, that coincides with the 1881 family lawsuit and the eventual sale of the property in 1886. The arrival of the horse-drawn railway in 1862 and then the steam-powered lines in 1884 triggered growth in both the residential and commercial sectors of Catonsville. Much of the completion of the Frederick Turnpike had at the turn of the century. The improved transportation brought Catonsville more within reach of the growing Baltimore area. Development opportunities and amenities propelled the cost of land in Catonsville to $1,000 per acre impeding settlement by anyone but the upper class and their servants. As a result, immediately following the Civil War, there were two types of residents living and working in Catonsville: businessmen and craftsmen who had developed a small commercial strip along the Frederick Turnpike, and then wealthy Baltimoreans who surrounded the village with large country estates, primarily used during the summer months. The improved transportation and subsequently higher property values created this image of Catonsville as an elite suburb. Development during this time sought to capitalize on this image. And how do people show off that they have money? Through the architecture of their homes, which they wanted to reflect the modern architectural styles of the time. And this ushered in a new period of growth, making the 1880s really the takeoff years for a new Catonsville. So the Haas farm was eventually sold at auction, which was advertised in the Sun and in the Argus before the auction that was held in October 26, 1885. And the ad mentions a 2-story stone dwelling, a tenant house, and a barn. So when the property came to auction in 1885, it was going to attract a certain type of person who had considerable amount of wealth. On April 26, 1886, the entire property was conveyed to Samuel D. Helfrich and remained in that family until around 1846. So Samuel Helfrich was born in 1845, and his father had established the George Helfrich and Sons lumber yard in 1862, and it had become the largest lumber yard in the Baltimore area for many years. A neighbor reports being told that by a Helfrich descendant, that the fortune was built on the sale of rough wood shipping pallets, which must have been a high volume business in Baltimore as one of the world's busiest ports at this time. So Samuel Helfrich took over its operation after him, his son. So the house under Helfrich's occupation underwent extensive exterior alterations to bring the house up to modern late 19th century standards, as shown in the older photographs on the screen. The alterations provided the eclectic Victorian style, which gave Oak Grove its present appearance. The original 2-story stone dwelling was raised to 3 stories under a mansard roof, which is one of the most common characteristics of the Empire style. For a time in the middle of the 19th century, what set the pace of architectural taste for well-heeled Americans was not some ideal of ancient past, but all things vogue in France during the regime of Louis Napoleon, or the era called the French Second Empire. Even after the Franco-Prussian War ended in 1871, the Second Empire style buildings continued to ride high on the tide of huge newly minted post-Civil War fortunes that were amply equipped to handle these extravagantly decorated houses. The Second Empire style, with its ubiquitous mansard roofs and heavy ornament, remains the first choice of wealthy home builders and their architects because it was, in their eyes, not only thoroughly modern, but also fashionably flashy in what was a very flashy era. In addition, during this time, the front porch was added, which is a hallmark of the Queen Anne style, which also brought the tall front windows seen here. In addition, the Queen Anne style, which was very popular from the 1880s around the 19 teens, rounder polygonal front or corner towers with tent roofs, the distinctive Queen Anne feature. The house exhibits a few free classic details, which is a subtype of the style derived from the colonial revival styles, such as the simple porch balustrade and cornice line dentils. This style can also be seen in houses throughout Catonsville and other areas of Baltimore County. And despite the alterations to the material integrity of the house maintains its original form and distinct characteristics of those two architectural styles. Also during this time, Helfrich updated the interior of the home as well. Even though interior spaces are not part of the land designation and LPC purview for reviews unless it involves a tax credit project, it's still important to note that the interior finish dates to the late 19th century. And here we have the 1898 atlas showing Oak Grove, Samuel Helfrich's property. And as you can see, the tavern has a barn, the main house. And again, in a 1915 Bromley atlas. So Samuel Helfrich died in 1923, and the house remained in the family until 1946, when Helfrich's daughter, Miss Katie Helfrich, sold the house at 1822 Road to Garnet Clark, a godson or grandson-in-law of Samuel D. Helfrich. The price was recalled to be around $30,000. The house was said to be in very poor condition at the time, was extensively repaired by the Clarks. The Clarks made some interior changes to keep the house in use, such as adding additional bathrooms and a separate apartment for grandfather Clark. In 1949, Katie Helfrich sold the house at 1810 Frederick Road, the former tavern turned tenant house, to a Ruxton and Maybelle Patterson. And it was no longer part of the entire property associated with Oak Grove. The Clarks remained in the house until they sold it in 1966 to the Carbo family. Also, I just want to note, Catonsville during the first half of the 20th century experienced rapid expansion, and by 1940, it had transformed from a rural village to a modern suburb of Baltimore with a population of 21,221 residents with around 5,000 households. And by the end of World War II, it triggered an unprecedented population explosion, which happened throughout the Baltimore region. And after the 1940s, the majority of the original land holdings were parceled off and sold into smaller lots, which brought new ways of development and construction that catered to the middle classes. And this practice happened to Oak Grove's property during the early part of the 20th century, when Helfrich started to sell off larger parts of the property. So then by the time in 1966, the Carbo family purchased the property, the lot was sits at its present size of an 8.107 acre lot. The Carbos owned the property until they sold it to the present owners in 1987. The current owners made a series of interior and exterior improvements to the home over the last 3 decades. And some of the more noticeable changes on the exterior, where they rebuilt the front porch railings to match the original porch design. They covered up the stucco-covered stone of the main block and wood siding with vinyl siding to assist with maintenance costs. So after reviewing the submitted nomination and conducting additional research, staff has determined that Oak Grove and its setting is eligible for Baltimore County Landmarks list under the submitted justifications for criteria 1 and for criteria 2. Even though the structure has historic association with Peter Hoss and association with the development along the National Road, both contributed to the growth and development of Catonsville and the surrounding area, the house and setting has been altered since Hoss lived there and no longer has the integrity to convey those associations with the early development of Catonsville and to development of the Frederick Turnpike. So the present house and setting are more associated with Samuel Helfrich and the development of Catonsville during its summer home era. The expansive Victorian renovations done by when Helfrich owned the property for a clear reflection of Catonsville's image as an elite suburb during the late 19th century. Lumping Oak Grove in with all the other Victorian dwellings in the area, the house and setting have been altered some over the years, but still retain the integrity of design, location, setting enough to convey those associations to the late 19th century Victorian summer community, summer home era in Catonsville. Overall, the present setting of the property, the house still retains in its original location and original orientation on the property. Although the house has lost some of its exterior material, integrity with the cover and the stone and the wood siding and vinyl. The overall form and major character defining features have been relatively unaltered and are still visible. Mansard roof and corner tower are major character defining features that are associated with Second Empire and Queen Anne styles of architecture. And since the current visual appearance of the house is associated with the major alterations made under Helfrich's ownership, the period of significance of the house would be from 1886 to around 1949, rather than that of the property's construction date. So staff's recommendation: a vote to place Oak Grove and setting on the community landmarks list under criteria one for its association with the development of Catonsville during its summer home era, and for criteria two as an example of Victorian architecture with Second Empire and Queen.
Thank you, Caitlin. We'll give you a minute to catch your breath, but thank you for that. Are there any questions for her, or any additional information that the commission would like to ask? And is there anybody who wants to speak for or against this with us today?
I have the property owner online submitted the nomination. Mr. James Higby. Hi, Mr. Higby. You're unmuted, so if you would like to address the commission, or if the commission has any questions, you're unmuted, so you can speak freely.
I can't say anything that you didn't already say, Caitlin.
Thank you. Well, you submitted a very thorough and detailed nomination, which I appreciate. It helped me.
Yes, we do appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Higby. Commissioners, any questions, any thoughts, comments, motions?
I have a question. This is Phoebe. Are there other examples on the Baltimore County landmarks listing or National Registry in the kind of Catonsville general area of the kind of summer, grand summer home era?
Yes, so Catonsville itself has like 3 different historic districts. One for Old Catonsville, one for when it transitions to more of a commuter community. And then there's, I think, an African American district as well on it. So there is a lot, and there are also several individually listed properties that are on the National Register. So this property is located a little bit out, like down the road from the National Register historic districts.
And are any of the other homes in the kind of general Catonsville area examples of the kind of Queen Anne's Second Empire style?
Yes, there's a bunch. There's actually another property on Summit that went through a similar alteration. It was a 2-story Italian structure, and it was raised to 3 stories under a mansard roof, which I think is now an apartment building.
Thank you. Just wanting to kind of bring out that context of where this house fits within others in the same area.
Thanks, Phoebe. Any other comments, or is somebody ready to make a motion?
I have a question. How does the proximity of this house is in the middle between 2 others that are landmarks? And I guess my question is, what is the status of the setting of this particular house, and whether there's consideration about, now that all 3 form kind of a continuum of historic properties, how I guess how will the whole setting of all of these 3 be perceived and protected, and is there I guess a goal to have that happen?
Well, so only one of the previously landmark properties is associated with Oak Grove, which is the tavern, which is at 1810 Frederick Road. The other property, which is on the other side, that was built in the 20th century, early 20th century, and is not associated at all with the property, other than being built on land that was formerly owned by them. It was the Catonsville Historical Society at one point, but it's privately owned now. But there isn't, so it's separate. That one was nominated for its architecture. And I believe the tavern was landmarked for its association with the development of the National Road. But there isn't.
Lily, my hearing is a kind of a subtext to the question of whether people could subdivide the land and make the home lose their original context and have newer homes built on the larger lots. Is that part of your thought?
Right. I guess because the frontage of the nearby of the tavern is very different from this house, and when we're considering this house as not just the house itself but the setting as well, I would just like to I understand when we're protecting the setting, what does that mean in terms of what's already there? Like, I don't fully understand what's already there in terms of setting that is going to become protected, and how that relates to only one, the tavern. I'm misunderstood that the other one was also protected. I didn't realize that it was not.
Yeah, I can clarify there. So when we were saying oak ribbon setting, we're referring to a historic environmental setting, or ATS, which is basically a portion of the property that is included in the landmark nomination. So before 2006, when we had a nomination come in, it was just for the structure. And then we came into issues where larger properties were getting subdivided. So you have a historic house that's surrounded by a new suburb or subdivision versus like not giving it a buffer. So now for any landmark nomination that comes in, usually when it's a smaller lot, it's the entire parcel is protected. So we review everything, because there's someone who doesn't. So the other two properties that are landmarks next to it, they don't have a historic setting delineated. So they can put a fence in, they could build a garage, and it doesn't have to come into LPC review. So anything that has a historic setting, so that means anything like on the site would come in. So that kind of helps with doing similar to like our historic districts, or anything like is constructed on the site or on the property comes in for review. It's just sort of a way to make sure that anything that is introduced is appropriately located, that sort of thing. So that's really, we're not really talking about like the historic setting. Is it historically? When I referred to that in my presentation, I just meant that this setting, like, it's used to be 46 acres and now it's smaller.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Any further questions, or are we ready for a motion?
I just wanted to clarify the setting. How is the whole lot being
Yes.
counted as a setting
Yes.
that they own? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve it?
So I would move that we accept the nomination to include the Oak Grove building on the, I guess, on the landmarks list.
You can look at it's written on
the preliminary landmarks list. Yeah.
On the preliminary landmarks list, yes.
Good. Thank you. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. And we need to do a roll call vote, I think, Jessica.
Okay. Could we have Vince, please?
It's a whole different approach to unmuting. Yes.
Thank you, Vince. Scott?
Yes.
Phoebe?
Yes.
Chris Hartz?
Yes.
Chris Weston?
Yes.
Lily?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Salisa?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And John?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And then next we have Paradise Place at Sudbrook Assisted Living Property. Is that Is it your turn, Jessica, or is this Caitlin's? This is
Yep,
you.
that's me.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. So agenda item number 5, Paradise Place at Sudbrook Assisted Living Property located at 600 Sudbrook Road in Sudbrook Park, County Council District number 2. This is a contributing property in the Sudbrook Park County Historic District, MIP number 3040. And the property owners are seeking ex post facto approval for the installation of a 3,800 square foot paved parking lot after staff was contacted by community members and subsequently a correction notice was issued in June 2022. No permit was filed for the grading. The new asphalt parking lot is located to the rear of the property and is accessed from Carysbrook Road. The new lot expands the previously existing gravel driveway and parking area and extends up to the carriage house, which the LPC approved plans for its rehab in July 2020, and staff approved plans in an emergency review after a tree fell on the structure in November of 2020. The previous lot and driveway can be seen in Google Street View image that was included in your materials packet. The new lot contains 8 regular parking spaces and 2 handicap spaces that will be painted and identified with signage. In addition, concrete or plastic curb stoppers will be installed at the head of each space. From the Google Street View, the previous lot began at Carysbrook Road and was located in and terminated at a concentration of 3 large deciduous trees, pines, and flowering shrubs. Images from June 2022 indicate that the vegetation has been removed. Updated site plans from June 22nd, 2022 show the expanded parking lot that will meet the existing brick walkway leading to the main house. Staff has concerns over the parking lot's close proximity to the carriage house and the impacts to the future work to the carriage house. The lot location should have been sited away from the carriage house. Staff recommends that a proper landscape plan be submitted that provides more details. The current site plan does not show the previously existing conditions, nor does it show the walkway from the parking lot to the house. In addition, no information was provided in the application about the zoning requirements for parking associated with small-scale ALF. A copy of the ALF permit application from August 2021 was submitted with the application, yet it doesn't provide any details if the parking meets zoning, and there is no record of the ALF permit being issued. Staff recommends that the applicant address the necessary zoning requirements with the Office of Zoning and return to the LPC with a proper landscape plan or more detailed site plan. So staff recommendation is to vote to not issue a certificate of appropriateness or notice to proceed for the parking lot as completed, citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, Fences and Landscapes, County Code Section 327405.
Thank you, Jessica. Do we have anybody representing ownership or neighbors? Anybody who wants to speak to this?
We do have a property owners online and some property reps. So Ms. Johnson or Ms. Dr. Pride, if you would like to address the commission or add anything, you guys are unmuted.
Yeah, Ms. Johnson is here. Good afternoon, everyone. When we started the project for 600 Sudbrook, we had to do the architectural drawing, and we also went to zoning, and they also helped us to do the drawing of the parking lot, and we sent it through for approval for the building permit. So there was, I guess in the prior picture, there was an existing parking lot in there prior, but it wasn't in good condition. I think it's been there for years, but when we purchased the property, the parking lot was not good at all. But when we were doing the building permit, we were asking a lot of questions and guidance from the zoning. So they guided us to the amount of numbers in regards to the amount of bed that is going to be certified for the building as ALF. We have not applied for the ALF application because the building it's not completed. So we're just waiting. It's been a 2-year long process, just doing everything as we've been guided to do. With the parking lot, when we did it, it was submitted, it was approved. So I think it was maybe some miscommunication in guidance, because it's part of the one that we submitted. It's part of the original drawing for the building permit. The carriage house was approved to be renovated, but it became an issue of safety, just trying to renovate it. So at the end of the day, we got approval from the engineer to, bring it down and redo it exactly the way it looks now. So when we started the work on the parking lot, we were just trying to do what was advised by the zoning and by the permit that we got for the building permit. So we are there. We are in the committee to do the right thing. We're there to do whatever it's needed to do. We've been getting a lot of guidance from Caitlin, and we've been getting a lot of guidance from Taylor, and we will continue to get a guideline to do the right thing. We want to do the right thing. We don't want to do something that is not needed to be done. We know it's historical, and we're trying to preserve the historical. So the fact.
Thank you. I think we're starting to repeat some of the information, and before we get too far down that path, there has, let me just clarify a couple of things. There has not been an approval from this group or anybody else that we're aware of to take down the carriage house and rebuild it. We also don't, we understand that there has not been a zoning approval for the parking yet. They may have given you some advice and some ideas, but we have no record that they have actually issued a zoning permit for the parking lot.
I don't think we have a separate zoning permit. I think we went through the zoning when we were trying to do the drawing for the building itself and the premises.
Well, you need to have approval for the parking lot as part of the zoning as well. Are you working with an architect or a land planner, ma'am?
Yes, we're working with the architect and we're working with a builder.
Well, I suggest you go back to your architect, depending on what the commission votes on, but and suggest to them that they need to clarify with zoning some of these issues. But let's pause our conversation for a minute and let me give the commissioners an opportunity for any questions or whether they want to take.
I just wanted to chime in. We did have some submitted testimony from the public, and it was quite a few people. So I instead of reading all of their testimony, I just wanted to say their names. See, I know you all got it. It was all sent to you before the meeting, so we all had a chance to read it. And a lot of the letters were very repetitive, and so there was no need to go over each several ones. But a lot of people stated the visual appearance, no buffers or landscaping, no stormwater management, or not going through the proper permit process for grading permits, which includes stormwater management, concerns about the location of it near the carriage house, appearance of making it look like a commercial property versus a residential property, and just concerns over some unlicensed workers. So we did have letters submitted by Maureen and Stephen Shaw, Agnezica Kunskas, apologize for the pronunciation of that, Franda Ottenheimer, Ray Rubenstein, John McCarthy, Dean Russell, Denise Watkins. We did have 2 letters of support from Wendy Sunderland and James Carnett. And then additionally, we have 1 member from the public who raised their hand that would like to address the commission. Again, Cheryl Herb, I'm gonna unmute you. I'm gonna put up a timer for 3 minutes just so you can see on the screen to keep you on check. So hold on. All right, Cheryl, you're unmuted.
Okay. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm unvideoed, but that's okay. So while they've done a great job on this house, as you guys have read the letters and stuff from the community, they were very aware from the beginning that every little thing on that exterior needed to have a permit for and had to be approved. I was one of the first people that ever spoke to them when they first purchased that property, and everyone has made that very clear. Also, I'm not sure whether you it didn't sound like it was addressed, but also part of the concern, other than the parking lot, is now the widening of the path in front of the house, because it now throws off the look of the front of the house. And they moved a permanent brick walkway wall that had been there, since the construction of the house. They moved that over as well, just to kind of make an semblance of uniformity in the front of the house, but it just throws everything off. And again, that was from the original house, and you can't just up and move that, over like that. So while the house looks great, the concern, especially from the Shaws, I mean, they've been, besides themselves, because there's no mitigation between that parking lot and the curb. It goes right up to it. Nothing can be done with the storm runoff. As if they would have put gravel or some other impervious material, it would have been not as stark in contrast. It would have allowed for better drainage, things like that. As it is now, it's going to run right into that street and cause more issues. So, yeah, the community, the majority of them is not happy. And I don't even know if at this point, the way it is, it can be even addressed with landscaping. Previously, I think you guys had some old pictures, but if you really look at the old pictures, they had right just past the dumpster, there was some gravel and then a gorgeous brick pathway parking, that type of thing up there. And the dumpster used to be farther up where the red brick pathway is, kind of just behind that. There's a wide brick, I think it was a herringbone pattern. And if they would have done something with more in the characteristic of the house, I think it would have been more readily acceptable. But when, I think it was the kind of final straw when the trees were taken down by an unlicensed contractor and they fell and damaged the carriage house almost beyond repair. I think kind of that was the last straw for the neighborhood. So, we just hope you take all that into consideration. And a lot of people are asking for, everything to be relooked at. And if it has to be taken up, then it has to be taken up and redone. I think Dean Rundell submitted some proposals for how it should be versus how it currently is. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Wow, good timing. Thank you, Ms. Herb. Thank you. Commissioners, discussion?
We have another.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
We have 2 more hands, but I just want to address so if we can please keep your comments to new comments, the ones that haven't been addressed, so we don't go under any repetitious testimony. So first I'm going to unmute Dee Rendell, and then it'll be Wendy Sunderland.
Unmuted?
There you go, Mr. Rendell.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was listed as Dean Russell. I think I've been called worse, but the name.
I apologize.
The name is Dean Rundell, and I am president of the Sudbrook Park Inc. Neighborhood Association Board. And I am a landscape architect. Practiced for about 50 years, so I have some knowledge of site development, and so that's why I've suggested a drawing that pushes the parking lot a little further into the site, brings the handicap spaces up closer to the building. But what it does is it helps the design to look more like a driveway into the site instead of a parking lot on the edge of the site, and gives plenty of room to provide drainage off into the lawn from the parking lot, and also to provide additional landscaping to mitigate the visual impact of the parking spaces. As you can see from that one photograph on the left that you're looking at, there was the parking that was there originally was mitigated and visually mitigated because of the existing trees and landscaping that were there. So the cars were not nearly as impactful from a visual point of view, especially from those directly across the street. So, and again, I think Cheryl indicated the front of the building, which faces Sudbrook Road, has been significantly changed as well. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then one more, you said, Caitlin?
Yeah, yes. Wendy, you're unmuted.
Hi. I just wanted to I submitted a letter, and I'm actually in favor of the parking and everything that's being done to the house. I've been in the neighborhood for 46 years. I actually own the house directly next door to the assisted living. It's a rancher. I disagree completely with Cheryl's sentiments about the neighborhood. There's a Facebook group, and if you look at the responses, it is by far more people supporting than it is of those that are against this. If you saw the condition of this house before they purchased it, it was completely run down, not as bad as the house that's at the end of Sudbrook Lane and Upland. That house is a disaster at 605 Upland, which, you know, people would be more upset about the condition that that house is in than what these people are actually doing. It has done nothing but improve the appearance of the house and for the neighborhood. And as far as the parking lot, that parking lot was already there. It was backed up all the way to the carriage house. Yes, it was a stone gravel, but it still was that same exact size of a parking area. So for the amount of work that they have put in for a couple people to be upset because they don't want to look out their window and see, a parking spot, they're doing it for, their own, reasons rather than, to support the neighbors and all the wonderful work they've done.
Thank you, Ms. Sunderland. I appreciate it. Just a reminder that to the commissioners, while the neighborhood input is important and we value it, we're really trying to follow our obligation to protect historic properties and remand things back to zoning if there hasn't been proper zoning done for the property. So with those two caveats, commissioners, any questions, thoughts for discussion?
John, this is Wendy. I just wondered if they had not received the go-ahead from zoning, why did they proceed?
That's a question. And I don't have an answer for you on that.
The owner?
You're unmuted, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. We got the directives from the zoning. We actually went to zoning. So I've never owned a property like this that is historical. So I've been trying to go as slowly, even though it's costly, trying to follow all the guidelines. So trying to do a parking lot, we were told that we needed to do a parking lot because we would have left it the way it was. The parking lot alone, it's costing us about $22,000. So I would have left it and used that money to do something else. But we were told we needed to do a standardized parking lot because it's an assisted living. And they do not. I remember they told us the family members cannot be parking on the streets. They don't, because if you look at that street, the Sudbrook Road, it's very narrow. So they don't want the visitors to park in there. So they said we have to.
Ms. Johnson, let's try and stay on the track on whether you actually had zoning approval or whether you just had zoning advice from,
Yes, sir.
from the
I'm
zoning
trying to
officials.
explain, sir. So I guess for me, as a medical practitioner, I might not know the difference between the zoning advice and the zoning approval, but we went to zoning. We did an application. They told us how many parking lot we need to have. They told us how many handicap we need to have. They told us where to put the handicap closer to the building. And we followed that in the drawing with the architect. We submitted everything, and then we got a building approval. They were not going to give the building approval until it was done, and we did that. So when I submitted all that with the advice, and I was issued a building permit, I took that as that it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioners, any other questions?
So I guess as a question for Caitlin, it sounds like there may have been a building permit, but not site development. Is that correct?
That's a permit was applied for the work to the house, which the commission had approved the rehab work for the house. The commission had never seen, we checked all of our files. We didn't ever approve like a site plan or a landscaping plan, only plans for the rehabilitation of the exterior of the house. I think that's where the confusion was. And I believe I believe there might have been needed a grading permit for the parking lot, which would have flagged us prior to
Right.
the installation.
Right. So it sounds like there may have been either a misunderstanding or a misapplication, but it sounds certainly like a site development permit of grading plan or something was should have been required before that any of the site development work would have happened, which also would have addressed stormwater and other site development issues there.
Any other thoughts, commissioners?
Well, I just am questioning because before it had been a pervious surface and now it's an impervious surface, which is quite a difference as far as, water, stormwater management and, many other things, beside the fact that there's no room now apparently for any vegetation to be a buffer to the rest of the neighborhood. So it does seem like that's kind of a leap, on the part of the owners, and I'm not blaming them, but there should have been a clearer communication from the zoning, from the county, and there are flags in the zoning office when it is a historic property. So something didn't get addressed there.
And I don't know, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure how the county rules on that. Gravel lot is not necessarily a pervious surface. I think it depends upon the jurisdiction. I'm not sure how Baltimore County rules on that. Some jurisdictions do not consider a gravel lot pervious.
Any other thoughts, commissioners?
I have a question. So to clarify, the installation of the parking lot has never been submitted as a plan to the permitting office. I'm not asking whether or not it went to one zoning or somewhere else, but I just want to understand whether a plan, a drawing was ever submitted to the permitting offices.
Okay, Caitlin, can you address that?
I know that Taylor had looked up everything we had that was submitted with the permit, which was approved, and everything that was approved by us, and we there was not a site plan or landscape plan that included a driveway with those, which would have been the ones that would have been submitted with the building permit, because that's how we are able to sign off on the building permits that the LPC approves. They have to submit the same plans that were approved by LPC, and those ones did not include a site plan or any mention of a new driveway. And I know that Taylor looked over it very thoroughly.
Can you go to the next slide? That is the drawing that appears to have been submitted, which shows the parking lot as constructed. The question is, whoever saw this? It doesn't have any grading information, surface coverage. It's just a layout plan, really.
So would someone like to create a motion to agree with staff and vote to not issue a certificate, or would you like to vote in a different direction?
So just to clarify, so if we follow staff recommendations and vote to not issue a certificate of appropriateness or notice to proceed for the parking lot, the owner can still go back to zoning and submit the proper landscape plan, more detailed plan, get that approved, and then come back to us for approval. Correct?
They can, yes, and they also need to look into proper grading permits. So when it does come back to us and you do approve it, they still have to go through the proper channels for the building permits as well. So if they get some information from about from grading permits and things like that, that might also assist.
Yes. Okay. So I know there are community members on this call as well. It may be that this ends up coming back to us and we review the parking lot and either approve it or don't approve it, but there will be that additional layer of the zoning review if we follow staff recommendations.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then I will make a motion to vote to not issue a certificate of appropriateness or notice to proceed for the parking lot as completed following staff recommendations citing Baltimore County Historic Guidelines, Fences and Landscapes, County Code Section 327-405.
And a second for that?
My second, Wendy.
And thank you, Wendy. Any further discussion?
I just had one piece of discussion, and that's over concern about the garage. I want to make sure that there was some discussion about the garage being torn down. It doesn't appear that it's been torn down now, but I want to make sure that there's not an intent to tear that down as a part of the existing property there.
Yes, we can certainly add that under advisement, but not part of the motion.
Correct. Right. Okay.
So
yeah, we can only address, the commission can only address the proposal that's on the table now. They can't talk about any other work. I mean, we can mention that the carriage house was approved for the rehabilitation of it as it is. No other work or applications for any changes to that original approval scope has been submitted to the LPC. I can
understand. Okay.
So may we have a roll call vote, Jessica?
I have Vince, please.
If we say yes, that means we're going with.
We are voting to not issue.
Not approve. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes.
Phoebe.
Yes.
Chris Parks.
Yes.
Chris Weston.
Yes.
Lily.
Yes.
Wendy.
Yes.
Salisa.
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
And John.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
I do want to encourage Ms. Johnson to please continue with your good rehabilitation work of the building. We always are grateful when somebody brings a building back to life, but the zoning and permit process is a very important part of it, and your builders should be aware of it as well. And thank you to the neighbors for taking the time to appear before us. Moving on to our next one, number 7, the Evelyn property. Are you up, Jessica?
Yes, yes.
Good, thank
All
you.
right. Agenda item number 7, Adelon property at 1909 Moncton Road in Moncton, County Council District number 3. This is a contributing structure in the Moncton County Historic District, MIHP number 22110. So the house is a 19th century vernacular style I-house, 2 rooms wide, 1 room deep with a central hall plan located within the Moncton County Historic District. And the property owner are proposing various alterations to the siding, window, door replacement, and deck constructions. So work item number 1 is siding replacement on all elevations. So they'll replace existing deteriorated wood shingles on all elevations with James Hardy lap siding with a 7-inch exposure. The application notes that the shingles appear to have been installed on top of the pre-existing lap siding and appear to not be the original siding. In addition, the existing siding does not appear to be flashed at the windows, doors, and roof rake above the front door. The proposed work will include demo of all shingles, repair sheathing and areas with rot, apply Tyrek vapor barrier before installing new siding. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the wood lap siding underneath the shingles to remain under the new siding to protect for future use. If the siding underneath is found to be in a deteriorated condition throughout that prevents the new siding to be safely installed, the applicant shall contact our office and provide documentation for our files. Work item number 2 for the front porch. Existing wood porch floorboards and framing are rotted. The porch floor will be repaired, and where needed, deteriorated elements will be removed and replaced in kind with tongue and groove yellow pine, then primed and painted. The updated scope mentions the porch framing is rotted, but no work to the framing is mentioned, just the floorboard and kind replacements. Staff asked the commission to get more details about this from the applicant. Otherwise, staff recommends approval as proposed for the porch flooring. Staff also wants to note that the applicant, that this project would be tax credit eligible. Work item number 3, windows. The applicant wishes to remove and replace all existing windows and any associated metal storm windows. The proposed replacements are Marvin Infinity 6/6 double hung 33/8 by 45 1/2 inch windows with simulated divided light sashes to be wood or fiberglass. Existing window openings will be repaired, flashed before new windows are installed. Rot and damage to the existing window flashing, jamb, apron, and frame were noted for all. More details about each window condition was provided in your meeting materials packet. It appears that the existing wood windows may have been previous replacements made in the early 20th century based on the Munson profile. In addition, the application proposes changing 3 existing windows and adding a new window opening. Details for each elevation are as follows. On the front elevation, 5 existing 6/6 wood windows will be replaced. On the rear, the second floor, 2 existing 6/6 windows will be replaced. Existing 8-sided central window to be replaced with a 6/6 window and centered on the facade. And staff is accepting of this proposal. On the first floor of the rear, the existing 6/6 kitchen window will be removed, and a larger paired sliding window will be aligned vertically with the windows above. Staff is also accepting of this alteration as it's on the rear elevation. On the first floor, the existing garden window will be removed and expand the opening to create a new doorway and install a Dutch door. Staff is accepting of this proposal as the new door is utilizing an existing opening. On the second floor of the south elevation, a new window opening will be created where one does not exist. The new window will match the other replacements, and staff is accepting as it is on the side that is not visible. Our guidelines state that changing the location, covering up, changing the dimensions of a window opening, or adding new windows is typically not appropriate treatment, but the enlarging or adding a window at the rear or other portions of the house that are not visible from the street may be appropriate if the proposal respects the historic character of the house. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the replacements be wood instead of fiberglass. Work item number 4, exterior doors. The existing front door will be repaired. Staff wanted to note that this would be a tax credit eligible project. On the rear elevation, the applicant is proposing the removal of an existing single wood exterior door and enclosing the space and covering with new siding. Staff is accepting of this proposal as it is on the rear. In addition, the owners are proposing the replacement of existing modern sliding door with a new Marvin Infinity French doors with divided lights. The new Dutch door is proposed to be installed on the south side elevation in the same location of the existing kitchen garden window. The existing opening will be expanded to accommodate the new door. Staff is accepting of this proposal as a new door because it is using an existing opening and is located on the side elevation. Staff recommends approval for all work as proposed. Work item number 5, shutters. The proposal calls for the removal of the existing wood shutters and replaced with wood custom louver styles from Timberline shutters. Staff is accepting of this as the existing shutters are not appropriate style or hung correctly. Hardware evidence that shutters previously existed on the house is present on the window frames. No information about how the new shutters will be hung was provided in the application. Staff is accepting of the proposal for the shutters, but recommends that a condition for approval be that the shutters are hung correctly so that they are operable, not screwed into the siding. And finally, work item number 6, new deck. The owners wish to construct a wood deck along the side and rear elevations at grade level with a 5/4 by 6 pressure treated yellow pine decking. Staff is accepting of the deck as it is located on the rear of the home and the side portion does not have a visual impact. Staff recommends approval as proposed. So the following are our staff recommendations. Vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness for work item 1 with the condition that the wood lap siding underneath the shingles to remain under the new siding. In the event that the siding underneath is found to be in a greater deteriorated condition throughout that prevents the new siding to be safely installed, the applicant shall contact our office and provide documentation for our files. Certificate of appropriateness for work item 2, repair and in-kind replacement of the front porch floor as proposed. Work item 3 with the condition that the window replacements be wood, and work item number 4 as proposed. Work item number 5 with the condition that the shutters are hung correctly so that they are operable, not screwed into the siding, and work item number 6 as proposed. Citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, facade materials, pages 1 through 12, windows and doors, pages 2 through 6, porches and steps, pages 1 through 6, County Code Section 327405.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. Is anybody from the homeowner or anybody else with us today, Caitlin?
Yes, give me 1 second. Yes, we have Andrew Eldelin. I'm gonna mute you. All right, you're unmuted. You can address or add anything.
Yes, I'll just say thank you to the commission for considering my application. I think Jessica laid it out all very well. I'll just make myself available to answer any questions to the extent I'm able.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? As he said.
I do have a question.
And Lily?
I was wondering if there was consideration about stepping the side of the deck back a couple feet, and whether or not consideration to have it approach on the sides so that it doesn't affect the front elevation of the house. Because at this moment, even though the porch is right in front, you're still having the deck be right up on that front elevation.
Just for my clarification, Lily, looking at the drawing, so you're talking about stepping that part that meets the front back a couple feet?
No, the actual, like the front porch, am I not understanding it correctly? At the bottom of the page, there are 2-3 steps that go up to the deck.
Here,
Yeah,
these ones.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so right now, the deck, the front of the deck is really at the same line as the front of the house. And you know, typically any new things, especially if it belongs to the rear, you really want to push it back from the main elevation.
But if that question is to me, I'll say I had not considered that in detail, but I have no objection to that modification.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
I had one comment, and I think it was just regarding retaining the original siding. I think there was a comment that the existing windows may not have been flashed. So the concern is that if they're installing new windows, that they may end up needing to cut into the original siding in order to properly flash those windows. So it's somewhat questionable if you have to cut into that to properly flash the windows to keep the water out appropriately. Is there a value to retaining that siding?
Clarify that for me a little bit, Chris. You mean if they have to take a piece of siding out, should they save that actual piece of siding? Is that what you're?
Well, I
All
think
of the siding.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that there's a, I think with that image, that's a lap siding, I believe,
Right.
that is there initially. And typically, you know, you're going to, you want to have some means of making sure that if water, the water would drain outside of that. And I think if I'm understanding correctly, that it sounded like there was a exterior membrane that would go over the top of that existing siding and underneath the new siding. But it might be that you might need to cut that. I guess what I'm seeing is the yellow siding underneath that. You might have to cut some of that back in order to get proper seal of the window to the frame of the house there. So you may end up modifying that existing siding, and if you're trying to retain that for, you know, keeping an original condition, you may end up needing to modify that, which would be of little value in order to get it properly weatherized there.
Okay. I don't think that would need to be addressed in the motion when we get to it, but it's something to be taken under advisement that if they have to
Right.
do that. Lilies, I think, will need to be addressed in whoever makes the motion. And any other questions or comments, commissioners, or is somebody ready to make a motion?
Well, as a former resident of Moncton and a proponent of the historic district, I'm just wanting to applaud the rehabilitation of this house right in the village there.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Is anybody ready to make a motion incorporating Lily's suggestion?
I'll take a stab at it, John. I vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness for work item 1 with the condition that the wood lap siding underneath the shingles remain under the new siding. Work item 2, repair in kind replacement of front porch floor as proposed. Work item 3 with the condition that the window replacement be wood. Work item 4 as proposed. Work item 5 with the condition that the shutters are hung correctly so that they are operable, not screwed into the siding. And work item 6 with the provision that the front edge of the deck be held back, shall we say, 2 feet from the front of the house.
Thank you. A second for that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. And then roll call vote?
All right, could we please have Vince,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Phoebe,
Yes.
Chris Parts,
Yes.
Chris Weston,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Salisa, Jamie,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then the next item is item number 8, which was pulled from the consent agenda. So Jessica, you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we can discuss it?
Right, so agenda item number 8, the Russell property located at 33 West Seminary Avenue, County Council District number 3. And this is the replacement of 6 vinyl windows in a 2-story bay window located in a non-historic rear addition with 4/4 wood windows to match the rest of the house. And one second. Sorry, I've lost my file. I should note that we did receive a letter from the Lutherville Advisory Committee requesting that the 4/4 windows be replaced with 1/1. And excuse me, just bear with me. I can find my document. All right. All right. So we are, okay, the property owners have stated in their application that the 2-story bay window is located on a rear addition constructed in 1997. The proposed replacements are Pella Lifestyle 4/4 wood double hung windows to match the historic windows on the home. And staff has suggested voting to issue a certificate of appropriateness as proposed, citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, Windows and Doors, pages 2 through 6, County Code Section 327-405.
And Caitlin, I thought I saw that the owner was with us, Mr. Russell.
He is. All right, Mr. Russell, you're unmuted, so you can address the commission.
Hi. So when we built we've owned this house for 40 plus years. And when we built the addition, we actually hired an architect who was part of the Lutherville Community Association Historic Committee to actually do the design work. And just an editorial note, the windows we're replacing are not vinyl, they're actually wood. But the wood windows that he spec'd they were just cheap builder grade windows, to be honest. And they had 4/4 snap-in grids that ultimately fell apart. And so what we wanted to try to accomplish, aside from getting rid of 6 rotten windows, was to bring the look of the bay window in alignment with the look of the rest of the house. When we built the addition, I mean, we had siding, it's German lap siding on the historic part of the house. We had German lap siding milled to match the house. We scaled all the windows the same as the original windows. So, I mean, everything we've done is trying to make everything tie together as tightly as we can. I talked to Marie Frederick yesterday. She's the one that sent you the letter. And she said, it was just a suggestion by the architect that they use. She said they weren't real strong on it one way or the other. My preference would be to get rid of the now 1/1 windows, and the windows we selected on purpose because they have dividers that match very closely to the historic windows that we have on the property. So that's sort of where that is.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. We appreciate it. Appreciate your thoughts. Lily, you would ask to take a closer look at it. Is there anything that you'd like to ask about, or?
Right, I just wanted to evaluate the decision, the recommendation of staff based on the the more recent letter that we received from the local advisory committee. And I'm kind of in favor, now that I hear the homeowners, I guess, presentation, I can be swayed either way, but I agree with what was said on the letter from the advisory committee, that if this bay is a later addition to the house, and the original windows of the house, even though they might have been replaced, or if the original ones of the main body of the house were 2/2, anything new can reflect a more recent window, so not necessarily to match the existing, to confuse sort of the history of the house. So either 1/1, as the advisory committee suggested, or maybe 2/1. So it pulls from the old, but also indicates that it's a newer bay.
So, Mr. Russell, as you heard Lily say, typically we want the additions to reflect that it is not part of the period. While certainly we like it when it nods to the previous architecture, it should have some distinctive difference to show that it's not old. Commissioners, any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Phoebe. So when this addition was done back in 1997, did that come before the LPC? And if so, what kind of windows were approved in 1997? You had mentioned that, when you originally installed them, they were, they had snap-in dividers, so it had the look of 4/4, but those, were
Right.
cheap and they fell out. So
Right.
if this came before us in 1997, did the LPC approve
Yes.
4/4?
Yes. I mean, the architect, first of all, that I used was on the Lutherville Historic Committee. So, and of course, things, have obviously evolved over time. When we did the addition, the impetus was to make everything tie in. That's why we spent all the money to mill the siding exactly to match and that type of thing. And we used original shutters if you look at that side view in the upper left-hand corner, you can see there's a window above the back porch. The back porch is designed to exactly match the front porch and columns and what have you. And the window over that back porch entrance is actually an original window that we took out of the back of the house and moved around to the side. So that's an actual original window. When we did the original historic restoration of the house back in the early 80s, we took every window, took every sash out of every window, took all of the original glass out of every sash, sanded them all down to bare wood, primed them, painted them, and reset all of the original glass back in the windows, and then rehung them with period chains and weights.
Wow.
So we've done a lot of work on this house. I mean,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mr. Russell. Lily, would you like to put in a motion inclusive of your suggestions?
I make a motion to approve the staff recommendations.
Okay, second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Roll call vote, please, Jessica.
Do we have Vince, please?
Yes.
Scott,
yes.
Phoebe,
Yes.
Chris Parts,
Yes.
Chris Weston,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Salisa,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Thank you.
So just so I'm clear, what did we just approve?
A project was approved as proposed for the replacement of the 4/4.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. You're welcome.
Alrighty. Next, we have the Rutkowski property at 903 Adana Road, Sudbrook Park, County Council District Number 2. This is a contributing resource within the County Council District Sudbrook Park Expansion Number 2, Adana Road. And the property owners are seeking historic tax credits for 2 work items. The first is the installation of a new furnace and air conditioning unit. The second is mortar repointing of the exterior and to the chimney. So work item number 1, the existing HVAC system is over 20 years old and is in need of replacement. The work will include installing a new natural gas furnace and AC unit. The outdoor units will be replaced and installed in the same location, and electric connections, ductwork modifications will be installed as needed. Staff recommends approval as proposed. Work item number 2 includes repairs to the mortar on the chimney and other areas on the exterior of the house to be repointed. No information was provided about the existing mortar composition or the proposed mortar composition. Staff recommends approval with the conditions that the mortar used for repairs is compatible to the existing material and is not 100% Portland cement, and that the color matches the existing. This information can be provided to staff in an updated estimate for the work from the contractor before the start of the work to be tax credit eligible. So vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness as proposed for work item 1 and conditional approval for work item number 2 with the conditions that the proposed mortar is compatible with the existing and that this information is to be provided to staff before work beginning.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. Is it a homeowner with us?
He is not.
Okay. And commissioners, any questions, any thoughts? Hearing none, is somebody ready to make a motion?
I would move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for work item 1, replacing the HVAC system as the staff had recommended, and work item 2 for repointing the masonry with an appropriate mason or with an appropriate mortar as recommended by the staff, to ask for that sample or the proposed mortar to be compatible provided by the owner.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please, Jessica.
Yes.
Good. What? Jump the gun, Vince. It's a
Oh,
quick-
sorry. I'm sorry. I thought.
Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
remembered he was first.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh,
Thank
That's
you.
good. I think you're muted.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
I'm so sorry, folks. I had asked it just to re-clarify who gave the second motion.
I did, I think, Wendy.
Great, thank you, Wendy. So now I'm sorry, Vince. Can I please have your vote?
okay. Yeah. Vote yes.
Great, thank you. Now Scott.
Scott had to leave.
Oh, sorry about that. Phoebe,
Yes.
Chris Parts,
Yes?
Chris Weston,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes,
Yes.
Salisa,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you. Then we go to item number 11, the Glendon Bank, which has been before us before. Are you up on that one too, Jessica?
Yes, sir. All right,
Go ahead.
agenda item, Glendon Bank. This is the Romay property located at 4817 Butler Road in Glendon, County Council District Number 2. This is a non-contributing structure in the Glendon County Historic District.
It's an error on the presentation. Forgot to change it.
Oh, yeah,
Just about
sorry.
that. Sorry.
Yeah, so to repeat, it is a non-contributing structure within the Glendon County Historic District. 4817 Butler Road is a 2-story brick building that historically served as the Glendon community as a bank. The structure was constructed circa 1931 in the colonial revival style. Although it's a non-contributing resource in the district, as it falls outside of Glendon's period of significance, which ends around 1915, it has acquired significance in its own as a prominent building on Butler Road, the community's main thoroughfare. The property is older than 50 years and architecturally has merit to be individually listed on the National Register or as a county landmark. Non-contributing properties are reviewed within the building's context, meaning its age, architectural style, and location of the structure and its relationship with the historic district. The property owner is seeking ex post facto approval for commercial sign installation for the second time. The following is a brief review of the timeline of the case. In July 2020, Dr. Leo Ramey purchased the building and contacted staff for information on projects needing review. Staff explained all exterior alterations required LPC review and a permit, and was provided a copy of the Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines. Prior to Dr. Ramey's ownership, the building was the Glendon Family Dentistry, whose sign was located above the door, not obstructing the Glendon Bank sign. In mid-April 2021, Dr. Ramey installed a new Baltimore Dentist Co. sign at the top of the building, covering up the original Glendon Bank sign. The Baltimore Dental Co. sign measured 144 inches by 20 inches in length. The text is white with a serif-style font set against a black background with a circular mint leaf design placed in the leftmost corner. The sign is mounted to the brick mortar on the front facade. In July of 2021, a Glendon neighbor contacted staff to see if the sign had been approved and properly permitted, which it had not. In early December 2021, code enforcement issued a correction notice directing the property owner to contact staff to rectify the issue. As a note, staff originally contacted code enforcement in July of 2021. However, there was a miscommunication on the correction notice being issued, which is why it was not issued until December. The property owner first submitted an ex post facto application earlier this year and was reviewed by the LPC at its February 10th, 2022 meeting. At that meeting, the LPC voted to not issue a certificate of appropriateness as completed and required the sign to be removed and located in an alternative location that does not obstruct the Glendon Bank sign. The LPC cited the National Park Service's technical preservation brief number 25, the preservation of historic signs, in their review. The property owner has again submitted an application seeking ex post facto approval for a commercial sign installed. In the proposal, the owner states that the reasoning for covering up the sign was because people were not aware that the building was being used as a dental office because the previous signage was too small, and has noted that the new sign has brought more attention to the building and its current use. In addition, the owner mentions that in our design guidelines, there is no mention of exterior signage, which is why she did not seek approval. However, adding a sign to the exterior of the building is considered an alteration and therefore requires a review. In addition, commercial signage requires a building permit, regardless if the structure is in a historic district or not. If a building permit was applied for, our office would have been flagged an LPC review and approval required before a permit can be signed off on. Preservation brief number 25, the preservation of historic signs, states the following points should be considered when designing and constructing new signs for historic buildings. Sign placement is important. New signs should not obscure significant features of the historic building. New signs should also respect neighboring buildings. They should not shadow or overpower adjacent structures. Sign materials should be compatible with those of the historic building. Materials characteristic of the building's period and style, using contemporary designs, can form effective new signs. New signs should be attached to the building carefully, both to prevent damage to historic fabric and to ensure the safety of pedestrians. Fittings should penetrate mortar joints rather than brick, for example, and sign load should be properly calculated and distributed. While staff appreciates the information provided about how the sign was attached to the building, staff still has concerns over the location of the sign, as the new sign obscures a significant feature on the structure. Again, the commission reviews non-contributing structures within the building's context, meaning its age, architectural style, the location of the structure, and its relationship to the historic district. The engraved Glendon Bank sign is character-defining feature and should therefore have not been covered up with new signage. Staff's recommendation is the new sign be removed and reinstalled in an alternative location that does not obscure the character defining features or the structure. Recommendations include the same location as the previous dental office's sign for Glendon Family Dentistry, a freestanding in front of the building sign, or a decal etch signage on the glass entry door, used in combination with another option. So staff recommends to vote to not issue a certificate of appropriateness or notice to proceed for the sign as installed, or to issue a certificate of appropriateness for the removal of the sign and install in the same location as the previous dental office's sign, or to consider alternative signage location options that do not obscure character defining features, citing National Park Service Technical Preservation Services Preservation Brief number 25, the preservation of historic signs.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. And Caitlin, did I understand that the owner or other representatives may be with us today?
Yes, Dr. Romay is online. You. Go ahead, you're unmuted.
Yes, Dr. Romay, do you have?
Oh, hi. Sorry. Okay. Well, so sorry about that. So basically, yes. You read through those points from the parks guidelines, which everyone keeps telling me to cite, and it's basically also that what she did not say is that also in the guideline it says that the signage should fit within the original signboard. So my sign fits within the original signboard of the building. Yes, the previous sign, that little one that says Glendon Family Dentistry, did fit down below there, just above that keystone. I mean, from my standpoint, it's very small. If I etched on the glass, that's no one driving by can see that. I mean, I'm a small business owner. I'm trying to do good for the community, and community members have come to me and told me that they like my sign. And frankly, I would like to know which community member said they were worried about my sign, but one of the leads of the Glendon Community Association, he has told me that frankly this building is not significant to Glendon's history. So to be very, to be worried about covering up the words Glendon Bank does feel a bit, it just doesn't seem significant to me, because this was, as you said, built circa 1931. I know for a fact that in about circa 1980, it was no longer the bank, and it was turned into offices that I think it was like a realtor, and then they were in there for about 10 years, and then around 1990, 1989, then the building was vacant, sat for about 10 years, and then totally vacant. So, how significant is the history of that? I don't know. Also, there's not other buildings in the district that are of this same style. And typically for something to be kind of considered iconic, it would need to be multiple buildings that are similar style, built in the same time, that have that like embedded stone signage. And there really isn't. Like, there's a new shopping center behind me. They all have signs like mine mounted up that are like not illuminated. No, I did not get a permit for the sign, because I worked with a very reputable company called AA Signs, and they told me, hey, we do everything. So it was my understanding that if they're a sign company and that I need a permit, that they were gonna do whatever needed to be done. Now, I did contact my person, the person I worked with at AA Signs, Derek Wisner, and basically I said, well, is there a permit? And he said, no, typically for a small project like this, we don't get a permit. It kind of like goes under the radar. No one tends to really care. That's why we didn't do a permit, because there's no lights, blah, blah, blah. You're suggesting also to go back to like the creative solutions. you're suggesting like a sign standing up in front of the building. Well, I don't know if you actually know what the lot looks like, but there's nowhere to put a sign in front of the building. So like, I just don't have the real estate for that. And to put a sign anywhere else, like there's windows, there's doors, there's molding, like I'm not really sure where I would
Okay.
put a sign.
Okay,
So that's what I have.
Thank you, Dr. Romeo. We appreciate it, your thoughts on it. Commissioners, any questions or any thoughts?
This is Chris Weston. Pragmatically, I think it is confusing to have two signs on the building. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to open a checking account or get my teeth fixed here. I am on Google Maps looking at the front of the building. It is important that the sign be legible from the road. I think a lot of this person's business involves drive-by traffic. And I think that the sign is tasteful. And I think that the architect's original intent was that the sign be located where it is above the door. So I appreciate all the historic guidelines, but my personal opinion is that the sign is okay.
Any other thoughts, commissioners?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you, Vince.
Okay. It's my understanding, I hope I got this right, that there needed to be, this would be considered commercial, right?
Correct.
Okay, there needed to be a permit for the sign, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that was or was not given?
It's not.
No.
Okay.
If they had applied for a sign, it would have flagged our department, and then we would have asked for them to come in for review
Right.
by you all before it was installed.
I'm looking at the two pictures too, and was that Chris? Was that you who said you like the sign?
Pragmatically, yes.
Yeah,
I've seen much worse.
No, it looks nice. The stickler for me seems to be the permit.
Yes, yes. We have no ability to issue a permit.
Right.
So whatever we decide, the sign is still not in compliance with Baltimore County because it has not been appropriately permitted. So whatever we come up with tonight, that underlies the conversation. Commissioners, any other thoughts?
I mean, it sounds like the sign company, led the the owner astray by saying, "Oh, it's just a small thing. We can let it fly under the radar." And so that seems like that was the bad advice. It still needed to go through the proper permitting process for the sign. So we got to follow the rules.
And I guess the question that I have is really regarding the non-contributing structure and how, I guess I'm not clear in terms of how the National Park Service looks at that. If that's a part of, if that's a part of the conditions there, it seems like it's, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it seems like it has that it's a little bit open-ended in terms of interpretation. And maybe that's not correct, but I'm not clear exactly how that's applied and particularly in this case.
And so just to be clear, the staff, Caitlin, Jessica, and the team are obligated to follow the guidelines as they are written in the county and other historic buildings. And then if the commissioners wish, as Chris Weston is suggesting, to vary from that, then that's within our purview. And any other comments from commissioners?
I have to note that, can I interject for a second?
Oh,
so
please.
Dr. Rome's attorney would like to speak, so I'm going to unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
That's
it was
all right.
Dr. Rome.
That's all right. I know she sent in a letter, but I didn't read that. I think it was to Jessica. But I'm going to, you're unmuted. Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Max Groshenko. I'm, I guess, how you qualify as an in-family attorney for Ms. Rome. I just wanted to quickly just kind of bring in a few additional notes that haven't really been addressed in applications, either the original or the most recent one. Just kind of highlight a few of the items that you guys have been talking about. So essentially, neither the reservations brief 25 nor the Baltimore County Historic Preservation Guidelines really provide an answer as to whether or not this is permissible or impermissible. And in fact, if you read all of the factors holistically, they favor maintaining the sign where it is. So as far as the preservation brief, they actually don't speak about stone signage at all, and the only time that they speak about it is with regard to removing the sign, so essentially destroying the sign to replace it entirely. Otherwise, they essentially are worried about maintaining the look and the original feel of the signage and otherwise preserving the signage. Maintaining the signage over the original signboard does both. It puts the signage where it's logically supposed to go and where it was meant to go, and that fits with the preservation guidelines, and covering it and securing it with appropriate materials, as Ms. Romay has kind of suggested has been done, further protects it from the elements and essentially enhances its preservation. And then if you look at the Baltimore County Historic Preservation Guidelines, while you kind of like see the thing that it should essentially, you should preserve historic signage and awnings that remain in a historic building and you shouldn't cover them, but they also provide numerous other guidelines that suggest if you move the signage, say, to the left or right, down or above, all of that is violative of the guidelines as well. The only solution is to essentially make a smaller sign than the Glendon Bank sign, which will then essentially make it seem like it is the inverse of the building. Rather than the main building, it is the subservient building. So essentially the only solution that doesn't, for example, cover architectural details like the little bricks to the left or right, or the arch over the top of the building, and you also can't put the signage on the rooftop per the very last bullet point. So essentially the only solution that exists is, logically maintaining the sign where it is, because that's where it's supposed to go. While yes, it does cover the Glendon Bank words, it preserves that signage for later use. And to the extent that that building is ever added into the landmark list, like you said, that it's not a part of the list, that will continue to exist. But otherwise, it's essentially depriving the business owner's rights to display their business in a reasonable fashion.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate those thoughts. Commissioners, any other comments?
John, as Caitlin and Jessica had pointed out in their proposal, or when they read it, this building is outside the significance of Glendon Historic Village or whatever, but it has acquired a historic character in its own right. It was built in 1931. It is very much a product of that era of Glendon. So it's not to be dismissed as not being contributing to the historic landscape of Glendon. It is on the main street. It's quite visible. And that sign is a significant part of the building.
Okay, thank you. Any others, commissioners? Any other questions before we ask Chris to put a motion on the floor? Hearing none, Chris, in terms of how the motion should go, we have to rely on what our guidelines are rather than kind of what our personal thoughts on it may be, but we have to be able to structure the motion in such a way that it fits within our guidelines. And the second thing I would caution on is we still have the issue of there is no sign permit, so it probably needs to proviso that they go back and get the appropriate sign permit. With all that, counsel, Chris, sorry, but can you make a motion?
John, the way that you framed that, I'm not sure I could make a motion other than to issue a certificate of appropriateness for the sign as installed, but it sounds like that is not fulfilling.
If you were to, it would have to be a notice to proceed, not a certificate of appropriateness, if you were to vote to keep it.
Okay.
Because it's not appropriate, but you decide.
Would they still have to get a
sign?
They would still have to apply. They would still have to apply for the sign permit in order to close out the code violation with code enforcement.
Okay, so I'm going to pretend that it's not there, and it suggests that we vote to issue a notice to proceed.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. And then
I'm going to suggest that we issue a notice to proceed for the sign as installed.
With, I think we have to
Proviso.
put the proviso in there that they need a sign permit.
Right.
So
yes,
we may add that. Do we have a second for the motion?
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Jessica.
Right, Vince, please.
Yes.
Phoebe. Are you unmuted, Phoebe?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I'm still kind of undecided.
Gotcha. I'll come back to you at the
Thank you.
end. Chris Parts.
Yes.
Okay. Chris Weston.
Yes.
Lily.
No.
Wendy.
No.
Salisa.
No.
Jamie.
No.
And Phoebe, have you come to a decision?
Yeah, I think no. I think, no.
Thank you, Phoebe. And finally, John.
I was going to vote yes. So is that, where does that put us? 5-4?
Just a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, the no's are 5, the yays are 4.
So the motion does not carry.
Right.
And it's not approved to proceed. So Caitlin, as a kind of
someone else can bring up another motion.
So do we actually need to do another motion, or can we just remand it to zoning to the permitting process and tell them to come back after they have a permit for the sign?
Well, we wouldn't be able to sign off the permit until they have approval from you all.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be able to get their building permit.
Okay, but my understanding
someone
is
else could.
Caitlin, my understanding is they had not applied for the permit, and so
no permit.
So do we not need to have them have an application in process?
They can have an application in process, but if the design or something with the sign changes, then they would have to submit a whole new set of design plans for that to happen. So that's why we always recommend coming to get approval from us first. So if there's any changes that have to be made, they only have to apply for the permit once with everything that's approved.
So one of the no voters would be appropriate for one of you to put in a motion that follows staff recommendation.
I'd be happy to do that if you can guide me on what I should say.
Can you see the screen, Wendy?
My screen is not allowing me to read.
Wendy, yeah, I can read the alternate recommendation.
Okay.
Issue a certificate of appropriateness for the removal of the sign and install in either the same location as the previous dental office's sign, or consider alternative signage location options that do not obscure character defining features.
Thank you.
That sounds good to me. I'll
Thank
make
you.
a motion to do what
And then,
Jessica said.
and then we need a second, please.
Is that Lily?
Lily, thank you.
Thank you.
And now we need a roll call vote again, Jessica. Thank you.
All right, folks, round two. Vince, please.
Yes.
Phoebe,
Yes.
Chris Parts,
No.
okay. Chris Weston,
No.
Lily,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Salisa,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and John.
No.
So we have 3 no's to 5 yeses.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And then the final one is the Ashland Public School.
Yes, almost through it, folks. Alrighty, agenda item number 12, Ashland Public School. This is the Teed property located at 200 Ashland Road in Ashland County Council District number 3. This is a final landmark, number 172, MIP number 202. And the property owners wish to make a series of exterior updates to the rear of their home. And this includes 5 work items. So work item number 1, bathroom addition. The owners wish to construct a 14-foot by 11-foot bathroom addition over the existing mudroom, which is a non-historic addition, located on the rear where the 2 historic portions of the structure meet, creating a rear L. The bathroom addition will create a large shed dormer sheathed with James Hardy shake straight edge with a GAF slate line asphalt roof, exterior soffit, and a large shed dormer sheath with I'm so sorry, I've lost my place. And trim details that will consist of ASIC trim synthetic trim boards. It will have Anderson 400 series simulated divided light casement windows, 2 on the rear elevation and on the west elevation, a pair at the center with 1 window at either side. The mudroom roof will be hipped, covered with GIF slate light shingles. A custom milled crown cornice detail will be milled to match the original structure detail. Copper 1/2-inch round gutters and downspouts will be installed. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the new cornice detail on the new mudroom roof be a different material or a more simple design to help differentiate the old from the new, as stated in our design guidelines, which can be done using a different material. Work item number 2, mudroom door replacement. The owners wish to replace the existing vinyl sliding door on the rear mudroom's west elevation with a custom designed 64-inch by 84-inch solid mahogany entry door with a 3/4 light glass panel. Staff recommends approval as proposed. Work item number 3 is for the mudroom window replacement. The owners wish to replace the existing vinyl double hung windows on the south elevation of the rear mudroom with a pair of simulated divided light 400 series Anderson casement windows. Staff recommends approval as proposed. Work item number 4, mudroom siding. The owners wish to cover the existing mudroom gray tile / brick with a stone cottonwood limestone tumbled veneer. Our guidelines state that additions should be differentiated from the historic structure. Staff does not recommend approval as proposed and recommends the owner select a material that does not replicate the stone of the historic structure. And finally, work item number 5, the owners wish to construct a kitchen, 11-foot by 24 feet kitchen addition on the rear elevation. It will be built on a monolithic slab foundation and be stepped in slightly on either side of the existing structure. The existing window opening on the rear will be expanded and used as an entry to the new kitchen. It will have a hip standing seam metal roof. The existing exterior stone wall will remain exposed in the new kitchen's interior. The exterior walls will consist of 4-inch U.S. stone cottonwood tubble limestone in order to match the existing stone. A ribbon of 6 Anderson 400 series casement windows with simulated divided lights will be on the rear elevation of the proposed addition. Staff is accepting of the overall location and general design of the proposed kitchen addition. In addition, staff appreciates the property owner's wish to make the addition match the historic structure. However, our design guidelines and the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic rehabilitation state that new additions/features must be differentiated from the original building. When new work is highly respective of indistinguishable from the old in appearance, it may no longer be possible to identify the real historic building from later additions. Staff recommends that the owner select a different kind of exterior material, perhaps a smaller coarse stone or a gray brick, or using a wide lapped hardy plank or a board and batten. Staff encourages the commission to discuss and provide suggestions of compatible and appropriate materials to help differentiating the addition and the mudroom from the original structure. So staff has recommended the following: to vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness for work items number 1, bathroom addition, with the condition that the cornice detail be a different material or a more simple style be used, rather than replicating wood cornice to match the detail on the historic structure. To vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness for work items number 2, mudroom door replacement, and number 3, mudroom window replacement as proposed, and to not issue a certificate of appropriateness for work items 4 and 5 because the proposed exterior materials do not differentiate the new work from the historic structure. Citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, facade materials, pages 1 through 12, windows and doors, pages 2 through 6, additions and infill, pages 1 through 6, National Park Services Preservation Brief number 14, new additions to historic buildings, preservation concerns, County Code Section 327405.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is the owner with us tonight, Caitlin?
Yes, yes. Mr. TD, you're unmuted.
Hi there. Yeah, so we have, I'm very happy with the results of all this. And we actually had a question in regards to the finish. Our original intent, until we found that particular limestone, was to go to stucco. Thinking maybe it looked like it was something that was brick that was then stuccoed over in the past or something like that to still give an old vibe, so to speak, to it. My question to you all was whether that would be acceptable or not.
So we would have to have that back in a proposal form. If you want, am I right, Kate, when he would have to amend the proposal before we could make a decision on that? Or can we?
That could be one option if the commission would like to see plans for it, depending on whatever suggestions or material. I mean, if that's something, if it's a material that if the stucco is something that you are all on board with, okay, I think that it's, an appropriate treatment. They can
bring it back to you with
can submit updated plans to us before they, submit for the building permit, so that we can see that prior to that process, since it's only like one element.
Right.
Yeah, am I on? I'm sorry, I'm not good at this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear everybody's input on it. Is we're open to color suggestions as well. It was really just to make sure that it's a masonry finish on that lower level. Just honestly, because grade concerns, and honestly, it just has the right feel. And I wanted the dimension off the windows to emulate kind of how the stone, the shadow lines and stuff on the original house windows and the thick sills and stuff. Although not trying, my original intent was to match because I thought that was the right thing to do. I've since learned. I'm happy to do whatever you all suggest, but I would prefer a masonry product down in the lower level.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments, suggestions?
John, if I could suggest, one other option might be, and Caitlin, I think this would still be in keeping, that you could do a stone base, say below the windowsill, that would wrap around essentially like a wainscot for that addition, and then do a siding above that. that would enable you to distinguish that as being something new, but still enable you to carry a stone down at the bottom of the building there.
Thank you, Chris. Any other comments or suggestions?
I was wondering if there was an alternative to the tumbled stone, so staying within the same stone manufacturer, but maybe there's more of a crisper edge, and like staff recommended a kind of a finer grain of stone, so it's maybe two coursings within one, so both choosing the variegated coursing that's different from the original, but also a more polished edge, kind of a newer, crisper, as opposed to the more tumbled original look. So I don't know if that's available, but that would be in my mind, an alternative for the first floor. And then I agree on the second floor with the siding.
Other thoughts? So what I'm hearing from Chris and Lily is that we're looking toward a vote to approve with two alternate suggestions. Am I hearing that right from you two?
Yes.
And so then may I rely on one of you to put that and add that to the motion?
Just to chime in, so is the stucco off the table of those two, or is that still one alternative option that we can place in?
Commissioners, is that stucco okay?
I would like to see the specs for the stucco.
Okay.
So, so the motion then, if stucco is your choice to do it, the motion would include the two alternatives that Lily and Chris suggested, plus adding stucco. And may I suggest that the motion also include that Lily and Chris be a subcommittee that approves the final design.
I mean, they can also come back to the commission. We don't have a meeting in August, unfortunately. So they can come back with more plans with various options with the specs. If especially if it's just for the addition, everything else, if everything else is approved, they can do that. If that's something that the commission wants to see it that way.
I have a question.
But would that affect your timeline, Mr. Titi?
It would absolutely.
Right.
I have a beautiful daughter that is dying to have a bathroom. So if we got a two-part this, and I am happy to do that, you can all understand that position. And we moved her out of her house that she has her own bathroom and a finished basement. And her only caveat for moving was, I want my own bathroom and a finished basement. Although I absolutely love this home, it has neither of those two things that she needs.
Yeah.
So,
we'll.
I have a question.
And Chris or Lily to put this in motion. So some of the things to issue a certificate of appropriateness for the bathroom addition. Some of the other things may be okay as they are.
is there a field verification that you guys would do?
Well, what would happen is once you settled on what you think of some of these options that the commissioners have mentioned and speaking with your contractor for that exterior finishing, you would submit a detailed plan and we would empower the two commissioners plus our professional staff to give approval. So
Okay.
it wouldn't affect your timeline on moving forward with the work as much.
Wonderful. Okay. Like I said, that would work great. I'm actually thinking of a hybrid. I'm thinking of Chris's stone, sill line basically underneath those windows in the kitchen, and then stucco above that, and then full stucco above on the mudroom walls.
Well, we'll see. We'll save that speculation for the detailed drawings, Mr. T. Thank you.
Sorry.
Chris or Lily, could you put that in a motion?
So I'd move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for work item 1, the bathroom addition, provided that that cornice detail be different. And then a certificate of appropriateness for work items 2, the mudroom door replacement, and 3, the mudroom window replacement. And then suggest that that we have a resubmission with a select group that that addresses appropriateness for items 4 and 5 to review the exterior materials. I think we're fine with the addition, but I think just need to verify the exterior materials being different from the original house there.
And so a second for that motion?
A second.
Thank you, Vince. And then we'll have a roll call vote. And just to be clear for everyone, a vote yes is to proceed with allowing Chris and Lily to make the final decision on that exterior treatment, along with, of course, Caitlin and Jessica.
No pressure.
All right, can we have Vince, please?
Yes.
All right, Phoebe,
Yes.
Chris Parts,
Yes.
Chris Weston,
Yes.
Lily, Wendy,
Yes.
Salisa,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yo.
And then we still have a couple of tax credit applications that you all want to mention, or do we just show them on the screen? There they are. So
Yeah, I'll just read through them very quickly. So the following historic property tax credit applications or historic review applications were approved by staff as an emergency repair or due to the receipt of Part 2 approval for work reviewed by the Maryland Historical Trust. So first we have the Stoneleigh Shopping Center and setting. It's a final landmark Part 2 approval for commercial rehabilitation project, County Council District number 5. We have the Wales property located at 31 Dunkirk Road, Rogers Forge. This was an emergency review for Part 2 approval for an AC unit replacement, County Council District number 5. Now next we have the Lang property located at 16620 Wesley Chapel Road in Moncton. This was an emergency approval for an abandoned leaking oil tank that was removed from under the porch steps. County Council District number 3. We have the Day Village, MCAP Day Village LLC property located at 511 North Avondale Road in Dundalk. And it was a Part 2 tax credit approval for commercial rehabilitation, County Council District number 5. And lastly, we have the Agar property located at 141 Stanmore Road, Rogers Ford. Another emergency review, Part 2 approval for in-kind roof repairs and County Council District number 5.
thank you, Jessica.
I have one. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I just have one other thing of business. So I just wanted to introduce. So you probably see the name Jeffrey Uttermall on our panelist. He's our new Office of Law representative, and I just wanted to introduce him so you guys see his face and know the name, so you're not confused about who this person is, if it's a new commissioner or not.
Well,
Thank you, Caitlin. I'd just like to say hello to Chairman Holman and the commission members. I'm Jeff Uttermall, a lawyer with the County Office of Law. And as a longtime county resident, I appreciate the important work that you all do, and I'm happy to be representing the commission.
Thank you. Glad to have you with us. And I saw Jen Nugent was listening in. Thank you for your input. We appreciate that as always.
Happy to be here.
And thank you to Caitlin and Jessica for your usual thorough work and preparedness for meetings like this. I know that's a lot of detail that we don't see going on behind it. And as reward for that, we'll give you August off, no meeting, and everybody can relax, and we'll be back in September. And enjoy the balance of your summer. I just need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
And voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.